Like that must just be amazing. Like this idea he had in his head, he
Yeah,
made it a reality, and now you've helped him scale it, which is just
yeah.
like I'm sure Jim's just beaming every day when he walks by that. Welcome to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvine. In this episode, we're going to talk about tariffs, turbochargers, and testing criteria. And I'm really looking forward to having a returning guest. My guest today is Dan McClave, president at Switchblade Turbochargers. Now, Dan, as I mentioned, is a returning guest to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. If you want to learn more about the origin story of Switchblade Turbos and really how they help with fuel savings, you can go back and check out the two episodes that Dan was on previously. So episode 286 and episode 336, links are in the show notes. Dan, you're a three-time guest on the Heavy Duty Parts Report. Welcome back.
Hey, Jamie, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Do I get a prize or something, or is it, how does it work?
Hey, I think the prize is being on the show and getting to share your message with this amazing industry that we're a part of. How about that?
100% agree. Absolutely.
All right. And
Yeah.
maybe we'll be able to send you something a little later.
I want to send you something.
There we go. There we go. So, Dan, just for those that maybe haven't had time to go back and watch those original episodes where they can learn more about Switchblade Turbochargers, can you give us a quick overview? First, let's just talk about the problem that Switchblade Turbochargers kind of tackled, and then we'll
Sure.
talk about your solution.
Yeah, absolutely. So the problem that we're partnering with owner operators, fleet managers, anybody in the heavy duty industry is to help them lower their cost. And with many of these fleets and trucking companies and construction companies, their number one cost most likely is going to be fuel.
Yeah.
So we are directly attacking and helping with that cost by improving fuel economy for them.
Okay. And so, like, how does Switchblade Turbochargers accomplish that?
So our turbocharger is a patented design. It was birthed out of 45 plus years in the industry of seeing different failure modes with turbochargers and how we could kind of build a better mousetrap, so to speak. So the way it works, it basically is a patented, like I said, patented design, two-in-one turbocharger that provides quick spool up from start. So you're basically eliminating turbo lag. You're getting fuel to the engine quicker, faster, at a higher rate of air pressure, and then at the high end, you get great power at the top end of the RPM range.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And, as we talked about in previous episodes, this is a simple solution. It's not a very complex one. Trucks are getting so much more complex. And I like that. I think it's, if you can create simplicity in, in your vehicle in any way, shape, or form, it's a good thing. So you just completed a 3-month test with a fleet in New York. Who are they? How much equipment do they have? Kind of just give us the lay of the land.
Yeah, perfect. So we literally just completed. We're waiting on the final results. I have preliminary, which I can share. But the company is called Flint Creek Transport in Geneva, New York. Justin Sensenigs is the owner. Him and I talked and met at the Mid America Truck Show in Louisville this past year. He's a fairly big operation, 35 trucks, heavy haul, a lot of driving. And as you can imagine, with 35 trucks, cost of fuel is a significant number for him.
Yeah, he spends more on fuel than most of us spend on anything else in our lives.
He does. He does. So when
Yeah.
I approached him and said, "Hey, I think we can make a dent here on this," his ears perked up and said, "Tell me more."
Right, right. Okay, so you wanted to set up a test. What kind of a test criteria did you set up?
Well, he set it up, him and Trevor, his fleet manager, and I was just sort of along for the ride. But I wanted to make sure. Look, the only thing that we're going to change on your truck is the turbocharger. We didn't add a tune. There was nothing done to the engine. We swapped his original turbo out on a Caterpillar 2WS engine and put the Switchblade on. So what they wanted to look at was the previous 3 months that they just ran the truck and the average fuel efficiency for that period of time. And then they wanted to look 12 months back for our test period and take those 3 months. So it was basically 6 previous months of data. And as everybody listening to your podcast and knows you, understands, fuel efficiency is very dependent on so many different factors: where you
Yeah.
drive, how you drive, how much you haul, what are you driving through elevations? Are you mostly on flats? So when I talk about this, people say, well, there's a lot of factors in fuel efficiency, which is why we only wanted to change the turbocharger. Same truck, same driver, everything. And then they tested our turbo this past May, June, and July.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it is a multi-factor analysis for sure. So, if you can eliminate any variables at all, I like the fact that it was the same driver. We all know how heavy on the pedal you are, will have an impact on fuel. But also, if you have a consistent route or the same kind of vocation that they're doing, then that does create as close to a level playing field as possible where you can actually do the analysis. So you completed the 3-month test. You set the test criteria, you did the test. What were the results?
Well, at first, I didn't want to wait for the 3 months. I wanted kind of immediate feedback, just from the driver. And the comment from Justin, the owner, was, um, I'm not getting that turbocharger off of him, off of the driver. He loved it that much. So again, that a lot of that is feel. How does it drive? How does it feel? Then the rubber met the road, and the preliminary test showed that his previous fuel efficiency was about 5 miles a gallon, just a shade over five.
Okay.
And with our turbo, he was about 5.7. So
Okay.
close to a 12% improvement in fuel efficiency just
Right.
by switching out from the OE turbo to ours.
Okay. So, 12%, some people think, well, that's not nothing, but it's not a lot. But you got to think about it. 12% of better fuel economy over an entire 12-month period multiplied by 35 trucks. Now you're talking a significant savings for this customer. Not to mention, the drivers also seem to like it better because of not having turbo lag. So that's a win-win. If you can keep your drivers happy and reduce fuel consumption, I think you've won.
Yeah, and that's the thing with our turbo. A lot of customers call and ask if they're going to gain power with it, meaning horsepower, and that's not really kind of what it does. It works best at the lower RPM range, which, if you think about it, that's where you're losing fuel, starting, stopping, in traffic, hitting a steep grade. So that fluctuation of that vane inside of our turbo makes it, from going from a small turbo to a bigger turbo, is where the fuel savings come. And there's other improvements and other benefits. It reduces a lot of the black smoke out of the stack, which is just unburnt fuel. So you're getting better oil life. You're lowering your EGTs with our turbo, a lot of different things. So, as I said, Justin, his comment to me at the MATS show was, look, if you get me a half mile a gallon, I'm changing over the whole fleet. So he did. He's a big YouTube guy. He published a video when they first put our turbo on, and he's again finalizing these numbers and is going to publish another one very shortly.
Yeah, so if you want to watch that YouTube video and hear it directly from Justin, head over to our show notes of this episode. I've included a link to that so that you can just do one click and get right there. And then make sure you subscribe and follow our friend over at Justin's channel. So, okay, so Dan, let's talk a little bit about kind of what's going on in the industry, because it's one thing to be someone who is bringing a solution to the industry. It's another thing to navigate the dynamic business environment we have had to endure now for what feels like our entire career, but really it's been the last 5 years. What's going on in the industry that's impacting your business?
Well, I think the topic that most everyone is talking about is a recent topic, but it's the tariffs. They're impacting everybody. They're impacting us in good and bad ways. We do some sourcing from overseas suppliers, but it's mostly benefiting us, Jamie, to be honest. For 45 plus years, we have remanufactured and repaired turbos in the United States, and we continue to do that. A lot of that work, it was easier to purchase from overseas 10, 15 years ago than to get a turbo repaired or a shaft repaired or something like that. Um, Literally the week these tariffs were announced, our business picked up. We heard from customers that we hadn't heard from in quite some time. So, I when I look at the cost of a part, that is one, to me, one element of your total cost. You've got lead time, you've got how much inventory you need to carry, you have shipping costs, you have a vendor that you don't even know where they are in the world sometimes. Um, I just believe buying locally and buying in the US and working with US manufacturers uh, is a benefit. It benefits obviously our economy, but specifically to answer your question, the tariffs have started to really improve our business because we are still rebuilding turbos and repairing turbos and manufacturing the Switchblade in Baxter Springs, Kansas, United States.
Yeah. So I think the downside to tariffs is if there isn't a alternative locally, and you used to be able to get this part, and through globalization you could get it at a really cost effective price point, and it was working for you, and then a tariff comes in and you can no longer get that part at a cost effective price, but there's also no alternative locally. So that's where it just becomes a tax on everyday citizens. But in your case, this is actually what I like about it is this is actually the exact designed, or this is the exact reason the tariffs were put in. The design of them was to give companies like yours the ability to offer your really advanced solution at
Right.
a price that is very fair, and that the person who buys it can still make money, lowering their total cost of operation, while eliminating a let's say an overseas supplier from the picture. So to me, that's where tariffs is a win-win-win. Now, as a Canadian, our Canadian economy, and it's not all the tariffs' fault, but the tariffs have had a big impact on us in a
Yeah.
negative way. That being said, even in our country, we've pulled together as a country and are starting to, do a lot more interprovincial trade. This is good for our countries, and I ultimately think that Canada and the U.S. are going to, through the I think it's the USMCA, if I remember, that's the acronym. I might be wrong on that, but you get what I'm talking about. I
Yeah.
think if we can get that agreement to be strengthened, and we can get our North American based economy really roaring, I think everybody's going to benefit from that. So for me, I think it's short-term pain right now for us in Canada, but I see the benefits for US companies. I've even seen some benefits for Canadian companies. This is a good thing for our local economy, and the men and women who, like the founder of your company, who kind of put it all on the line for 4.5 decades. I mean, to get rewarded now is probably a pretty good feeling for him.
Yeah, no, it is, and you're referring to Jim Blaylock. He's still at work every single day, just turned 78 years old, and, calls me every day, and we chat all the time, and I'm out in the shop, at least once a month, but he has I'm telling you, Jamie, he has inventory of rare turbos that you can't get anymore. He's repairing stuff, and again, you look at the supply chain, we have inventory. We can repair a turbo in a couple of days and get
Right.
it right back to the customer, or if we have inventory, it ships out same day. So, buying overseas is one thing, and again, we do it. I'm trying to get away from it, but we have to order stuff 3 months out sometimes and keep a lot of inventory for that long supply chain. So there is a cost to that that isn't really defined and not really looked at when you just look at, a piece price.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that geopolitical stuff too, there's so much uncertainty now. And the supply chain, in my opinion, is still so very weak globally. Like, it really has been weakened. And I just saw, like, we're recording this on September 4th. We just saw this morning China, Russia, North Korea kind of flexing their muscles with a big politically based or a military based parade, kind of flexing their muscles, showing their what they have for their military, kind of signaling
Yeah.
to the West that they're not afraid, and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, man, if you're buying something that comes from like Asia, one day it could be fine. The next day there could be a blockade between China and the Philippines, and nothing's getting through, and you don't get your part. So I think the more nearshore and local that we can be, the better it is. And not obviously not wanting to flame the fires of geopolitical conflict, but it would probably be in our best interest if we keep going down this road and we can take care of ourselves. I think that's an
Yeah.
important part of
True.
our long-term success as an industry. So Okay, well, before we make the whole internet go crazy with comments on all this political stuff, we better get off that subject.
No
Let's
problem.
talk about something that we actually have a lot of control over, which is how we operate our companies. I've known you now for a few years, and it's actually been a real privilege to get to know you, Dan. I see the impact you've had on this business as you came in and helped Jim. You've had a lot of success. Let's kind of break it down into what you kind of look at as kind of three pillars of success. So first, let's talk about how you approach people. What are you doing with your people that is making your company so successful?
I appreciate those kind words, and it's been wonderful being on your podcast many times and getting to know you and what you do for the industry. So, to answer your question, I learned early in my career in operations and manufacturing that if we get it right on the four walls that we can control inside our own building, the outside will take care of itself: sales, customers, etc. So, our focus has been on three things. Number one, that you mentioned, was our people. We feel we have the best people in the industry. Many of them have been with us for 25, 30 plus years, and they're fantastic at what they do. So we wanted to really focus on them and their ideas, because all the ideas, the best ones, there's a lot of ideas in a manufacturing company, but the best ones are from the shop floor. They're from the people handling the product every single day. So our first main focus that we wanted to really stress in this past year was on our people, their ideas, empowering them, making it okay to speak up and offer suggestions, even though if they're not always taken, but at least they felt, okay, I'm a part of the team here and I can do this.
Okay, so I've been involved in a lot of change management in the consulting work I do at the Heavy Duty Consulting Corporation. And one of the things that I have noticed is in companies with a lot of legacy employees, they've been there 2, 3, 4 decades. Well, they know the business inside and out. Sometimes they can be really resistant to the change you're trying to bring to the business. How have you navigated that?
Well, that has also been something to address, me kind of coming in recently with fresh ideas to a business that's been there for decades. But it I have an expression, it's corny, but to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. So you got to kind of break some things down in order to build something else new and different back up. And the funny thing was, Jim and I were aligned on where the company needed to go, but then you get
Right.
to, well, we have to do that to get there. And it's like, well, yeah, we do. So he is brilliant in the technical space, the idea space. My background is really on process improvement and taking, maybe antiquated processes and making them easier and more repeatable. So that's really what we tried to do. And we asked our people to focus on the process um, of how we do what we do. And again, yeah, there was some resistance to that. Well, I've done it like this for this many years. Well, okay, that's great. It's gotten us to here, but we're trying to get there. So how are we going to do that together? And that kind of has been what we've been focused on.
Yeah, and I think what I've observed also is that you start from that position of respect, right? You respect the years of service, the tribal knowledge, if you will, that they've developed over all that time. And when you introduce the new idea, I always tell people that are working or reporting directly to me, don't make me look at you. Like like if something's not working, it should be that we're all looking at the system or the process, right? So if
Mhm.
you're following the system and the process and we're not getting the result we want, we're going to look at the system and the process and make adjustments there. So don't go outside of that, because then you force me to look at you as an individual. I don't want to have to do that. I just want
Right.
to come to work and say, "Hey, you did the best you could. You followed the process. It didn't work out. Let's make this change," right? And I think that incremental change is also that continuous improvement mindset is really part of that. And it's kind of weaving those two things together. But let's talk about process for a moment. Give me an example of how you've approached process differently to get the company to the next level.
Well, we're changing our business, and we'll talk about, I think, a little bit later in the podcast of our distribution situation. We've always been kind of a B2C type business, selling direct to the consumer. But
Right.
when Jim and I got together, we said, well, we want to sell bigger fleets. We want to sell, Justin out in New York with 35 trucks. How can we do that? We have to carry inventory. We have to really streamline our process. We have to be able to lower our cost
Hmm.
and pass that on to the customer. So that's kind of been what we did. So we looked at every facet of it. What's our cost of raw materials? Is this the best supplier that we can get? Should we farm this out to other people? Because you get comfortable. Well, I've always
Yep.
used that supplier. Well, when was the last time we got a price break?
Right.
Are they? So we want to be loyal and have been loyal to a lot of our suppliers, but at the same time, we've had to bring in new ideas, and that also came with, well, is there a different way we can produce the part that makes it more repeatable, more effective? Um, Again, so we can lower cost, improve quality, and serve our customers better. And real quick, back to the people side and empowering the people. I keep mentioning the Mid America Truck Show. We brought two of our employees out to work the booth at the Mid America Truck Show, which, like, right from the shop floor. And they went out there, and we just unleashed them with customers and potential customers, and said, look, you guys are handling the product every single day. And that was a bit of an eye opener, because sometimes you buy a product, you have no idea who's on the other end of it, who produced it,
Yeah.
who picked up the phone. And I mean, these guys are making sales on the floor. It was awesome. So, having them out there, and my sales guy, and we just sat back most of the time and kind of unleashed Mike and Mickey to the Mid America Truck Show, and they did great. So, and they appreciated that. Get them out of the four walls for a few days, and be the face to the customer. So that was really cool.
As you were talking about looking at processes, I kind of brought to mind you must have done some value stream mapping. You must have mapped out like step by step how things go through the company from one end to the other, right? And as you did that, you might not have called it that, but as you went through that process yourself, like, did you find something surprising that you weren't expecting when you first joined the company?
Well, I've known Jim for 15 years. I've known about Switchblade and turbos for that long from a previous company that I was with. So I
Right.
had seen this operation 15, 18 years ago. And when we re-engaged, I went back out to the shop floor, and I kind of saw the same process of what was
Uh,
happening. So I said, all right, if we're going to do this and we're going to sell more product to bigger customers, we've got to streamline things. We got to break steps down to, whereas maybe, one of the guys might have been doing a tremendous job, but maybe too detailed, maybe taking too long. Can we, these guys are surgeons. Why are they doing OR prep?
right.
Let's get them the best equipment. Let's get them, really artistically and manufacturing wise, what they can do the best. And a lot of that was working with suppliers to get
Mm.
materials in a little bit differently or designed differently, because they did a lot of work, kind of from scratch within the four
Mhm.
walls, that we could put on our suppliers now. And that's what
Yeah.
we did.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about how all of that translated into the product itself and your focus on that. Like what happened there, and how did you focus there, and how did that contribute to the overall success of the company?
Well, I think by focusing first on the people and the process, the end result of the product was going to take care of itself. We built in quality, we built in efficiency, and now, we've been able to acquire some bigger customers and partner with some bigger distribution partners and ship them same day out of our inventory, whereas previously it might have taken a week, to get them a handful of parts or whatever the case is. So it was an investment. We have, product on the shelf, and producing it every single day. So we're more of a build to inventory now than build to order, which is kind of how Jim was doing it before. So that has really just been the result. The product works, as proven by, Justin and Flint Creek Transport and many of our other customers that are seeing the fuel efficiency improvements.
It must be awesome for Jim to come in and see his Switchblade turbochargers on the shelf in volume, right? Like that must just be amazing. Like this idea he had in his head, he
Yeah,
made it a reality, and now you've helped him scale it, which is just
yeah.
like I'm sure Jim's just beaming every day when he walks by that
Well,
pallet racking with all that inventory.
yeah, yeah, and look, he's embraced it. The guys have embraced it. Like, were there days where we didn't see eye to eye? Of course. So I've had to also not come in and say, "Hey, I know everything about this business." My career
Sure.
has been in passenger car and light truck. This is the heavy duty market, which I love. It's relationship based. It's a product that if your truck is down, or you want to save 5 to 10% in fuel efficiency, those are massive savings. And that's the other thing that we tell customers too, Jamie, is look, this investment in this turbo is going to pay for itself in a few months. Okay. Then after that, you're just reaping the savings. So
Yeah.
we do offer financing. We can, offer terms if it's kind of a big spend for somebody out of the gate. But it's kind of fun to get the phone calls and have people say, you said it, but I didn't expect it, but it's really happening. So it's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that when you are retrofitting a fleet at any time, that cost investment, right? Sometimes what happens is that people don't have the stomach for the time period between the investment and the
Right.
full reward of the return on investment, right? And so that gap in between, that delta can be really challenging, both financially, but also people forget, right, when these businesses are privately owned, so that can be a lot of stress, and I've seen that with some of my clients, right? Stress between husband and wife, or business partners,
Yeah.
two brothers, or a dad and a son, right? And it's like, yeah, it's that year between, well, we spent all the money and we still
Yeah.
haven't gotten our money back, can be really tough, especially in kind of a dynamic economy like we're in now. And let's face it, things are not really roaring right now. Things are down. The freight recession continues to grip the industry in the
Right.
US. In Canada, our natural resource based economy is basically hobbled right now by bad policy. So there's a lot of things going on that are working against us, and yet there's still ways to find these opportunities to improve your company. So if you want to do that, reach out to Switchblade Turbochargers. What's the best way of getting a hold of you and looking at your product?
I can just call the plant, call Switchblade. We have a website. You can purchase product directly from us off the website, just switchbladeturbo.com. And our customer service is, we pick up the phone, we answer the phone, and the product is being built right in the manufacturing floor.
And you're talking to someone from the United States of America, not overseas, so you're going to be able to have a conversation with them. You've been listening to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvin. We've been speaking with Dan McClave, president at Switchblade Turbochargers. To learn more about Switchblade Turbochargers, visit switchbladeturbo.com. Links are in the show notes. Dan, thank you for being a 3-time guest on the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I know you'll be back.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching this video. Click here to subscribe to the Heavy Duty Parts Report YouTube channel, and click here to watch another great episode.